All right, some new insight tonight on the so-called Sheriff of Albany as U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara talks about what guides his corruption prosecutions. Now, Bharara, of course, is the man whose investigations have led to the arrest and upcoming trials, among others, former Assembly Speaker Shelley Silver and Senate Majority Leader Dean Skelos, among others. Just think about it. A year ago, if I had told you that was the new reality. It's led to tons of press for Bharara, but also it's led to some recent complaints that he has overstepped his authority in some of his public comments about Albany corruption and as well as those top-end cases. Now, yesterday, Bharara, he talked about those complaints and the motivation behind his Albany prosecutions.
Those crimes go to the heart of democracy, and everybody, whether you're a prosecutor, a defense lawyer, whether you're working a blue-collar job or a white-collar job, whether you're old enough to vote or not, those people's decisions affect your lives. They make decisions about what kind of taxes you pay. They make decisions about speaking of incarceration, who goes to jail, who doesn't, for how long, whether our jails are properly monitored or not. And so to answer questions about why it's happening, why is there corruption in Albany or the city council or anywhere else, and what ordinary people can do to make it better and to raise public awareness of this problem, I think is completely appropriate, and I think I would be in some ways remiss if I didn't talk about those things.
And then Bharara added this headline-making quote just a short time later.
Somebody once asked me, made the mistake of asking me the question, what again is your jurisdiction exactly? And I said, are you familiar with Earth?
Okay, so I asked you, Madam Assemblywoman, if I get it from both sides. I've heard folks both from the legal side saying, okay, I get where he's coming from, but he clearly has overstepped his area code in terms of where he's gone. On the flip side, someone said, somebody's got to do this, right? The legislature, at least leadership, hadn't been able to police itself, as evidenced by both the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader having their own day in court coming up. And also, the Albany DA didn't do it. So he filled a breach. Where do you fall on this?
Well, one, neither of these gentlemen have been convicted yet, and I don't think you should presume they are going to be.
He's had some convictions, though, even without him.
No question.
Right.
He's had plenty of convictions in Albany, and credit to him for bringing cases where they're appropriate. I think there's a line to be followed between being an effective prosecutor, rooting out corruption, which everyone, including everyone in my district, wants to see rooted out. People are very fed up. I understand it, and they have a right to be. That being said, there's also a responsibility as a prosecutor to act as a prosecutor, not a governor or elected official as sort of their opinions count. A prosecutor's job is to ensure there is justice. And to that end, I say go ahead and do your job. Do it aggressively, do it fairly, use the justice system. I do think when someone says in passing, my jurisdiction is the whole earth, you know, it's snide. His jurisdiction is not the earth. He has a set jurisdiction determined by a statute, generally speaking. I mean, obviously, he can expand it under certain circumstances. So as a lawyer, I think his comments are questionable in tone and beyond the scope of what a real prosecutor should do. That being said, to his credit, he's gone after people. He should, and they should face the court and be punished if they've been convicted of a crime.
I think there are legitimate questions about a prosecutor who sort of seeks the spotlight in the way that Bharara seems to, although we can all name multiple examples of multiple prosecutors, whether you're talking about DAs or federal prosecutors who have done that historically. I mean, it's sort of the nature of the beast. But one of the things that Bharara was saying to the NYU Law School when he was in that conversation is, look, when I go up to a podium and I talk about K2, or I talk about some other issue of criminal justice that's not political corruption, nobody ever comes to me and complains that I'm at the podium and I'm making more out of this, or I'm injecting myself into a place where I don't belong. The only time I get that is when I'm dealing with political corruption and I'm dealing with these high-profile attorneys. I think he was making the argument that some of this is political posturing, both for the trial and for the public dissemination and public dissection of the whole thing. But, Assemblywoman, what do you think about that difference that he doesn't get criticized for going public on other issues, only seems to when it comes to political corruption?
Well, I don't know, and I'm not here to criticize him, other than to express my concern about that tone in the political context. And I'll tell you, not for me personally, But for the many elected officials that I have worked with over the years who have and strive to have the highest ethical standards, by sort of saying everyone in Albany is tainted, or by implying that, you cause ordinary people to lose faith in people who they would otherwise have faith
But don't
in.
you also motivate the people who are in those positions to perhaps act in a little better way, in the same way that maybe if he goes up there and says these gang members need to get it in line or we're going to crack down on them, and, you're hoping not just to sway public opinion, but also to change the behavior of the people that you're targeting.
Look, I think it's a little more complex than that. There are some bad actors. They were bad before. They're going to be bad when they get up there. There's a number of factors, including the ability to get money outside the system. The money has been a big driver. We need to fix it. Let's fix the things that drove sort of moderate, people who are generally ethical into unethical behavior. There's some people who are simply crooks. Get rid of them.
I'm curious because we're going to be talking
gonna
more.
blast them.
No.
I'm gonna blast
We're
them.
going to talk to Morgenthau, probably one of, if not the most legendary DAs that the city's seen, that people can even remember, period, in the coming weeks. But there is an element to any effective prosecutor that you got to get the public on your side here a little bit to ratchet up the pressure.
You're not going to do it that way.
Especially if you're picking a fight.
You're not going to do it that way.
How much do we talk every night? Let me finish.
Bharara's out of control now.
Okay, well, let me ask you. If you just sit back and you look at the results, okay, forget about the ego and planet Earth, and I'm with you on that one, okay? If he didn't deliver scalps, okay, and it's premature, at least at this point, the two of the three men in the room, if you will, right? They're at least looking at trial dates, okay? And there's been a whole host of others who have already been ridden out of town on a rail, and some here even looking at convictions, okay? Hasn't he delivered, even if he has inflated the talk?
He has delivered. But Richard, he's not Elliot Ness. This is not a TV show where he can just run around on planet Earth doing whatever he wants. As the Assemblywoman said, there are statutes. He has done an excellent job going after corruption in Albany. But remember, this is the same. But let's keep in mind, and that's why I'm glad that the Assemblywoman pointed this out. They have been indicted. They have not been convicted. Let's remember, Rudy Giuliani in that same seat walked in on live television, a lot of people from Wall Street out in handcuffs, and a year or 2 years later, they were acquitted in a court of law. So the Speaker and the Majority Leader, they have not been convicted of anything. He's doing a great job, but I think he's starting to let his job go to his head. If he plans on running for office, then run. If you want to indict all of Albany, I'm with you, Mr. U.S. Attorney.
Well, not all.
Not all, excuse me. If you want to indict some in Albany, I'm with you. You're doing a great job, but you're losing the PR battle. Remember, a federal judge, yes, he is. Let me tell you why. Remember, a federal judge has already issued a gag order on this prosecutor because his mouth is starting to get him in trouble. As it relates to, I believe, the case with Shelley Silver.
Can I just point out that those comments are from Dominic with a C. Carter? If Mr. Bharara's watching tonight,
Yes.
Hey, Richard, I know you got to take a break. I don't know what it is with that seat, U.S. Attorney for the Southern District. These guys come in, their heads go like this.
Well, you know what it is? I think
Giuliani did the same thing.
I think it's one thing that happens, and we've seen it time and time again. Either there's an attorney general like Spitzer, or, by the way, Andrew Cuomo, who says, this is my thing. Or you get sometimes an ambitious DA, whether it's out of Albany, who says, this is my jurisdiction, I'm going to do it. Or you have a U.S. attorney who says, somebody's not going to take this one. I am. Between white-collar crime and corruption in Albany, it's certainly a talent-rich pool to be shooting after. He filled the void that Schneiderman, for whatever reason, hasn't chosen to go after, and the Albany DA stand down. I'm not saying they're right. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying the governor muzzled or didn't. People can make their own discretions. He filled the void. I'm just saying for the public right now, even if he's getting a little bit too big for his britches, they're saying, let me see how far it goes. I want to ask something really quick.
Earth is
Yeah,
your jurisdiction.
didn't sound good. I'll give you that much. All right. I want to get a little quick take here in terms of Shelley Silver, the aforementioned speaker who has not been convicted, but they've already released their their list of witnesses they'd like to. Potential. And I want to get to that in a second. First, clear it up for me. If we can bring up the who's who. Let me try and do that in English. You've got the governor. you've got Mr. Skelos, Vito Lopez, who can tell his own stories, Keith Wright, the former or soon-to-be former top judge of all of New York, Jonathan Lippman, and then the Rathvogels. That's its own, made-for-TV movie with the Assembly Speaker, if you believe some of the rumors. So my point is, from the layperson and not attorney, he clearly wants to show it's not just me. This is the whole a pox on all of Albany here, plus also a threat. How realistically can he get these folks, compel them to testify?
Well, I think the purpose of putting out the potential witness list is to exclude jurors who have an idea or a judgment about them that would prejudice them from being fair-minded jurors. And whether it's accurate that he intends to call them or not, he's saying there's a big world of politics out there, and any of you potential jurors who've had relationships or knowledge or opinions really can't judge me fairly. Now, maybe it's to the point you're making. I see it in a more limited way, which is actually if you knew one of these people, like your mother worked in somebody's house and they live next door, you're not going to be a fair juror if that person is called to a trial because you already have a pre-existing
You think it's
relationship.
really just about the jurors? You think that
That is the purpose of the list. It may have some other media purpose, and I'm sure those of you can all talk to that. But from a legal point of view, it's for asking jurors questions.
Do you think there's an implied threat there, though, with that list? Hey, if I go down, I'm bringing everybody down with me.
No.
Look, the governor of the state,
Really?
the former
No, I don't.
majority leader of the Senate.
I can't speak to what his lawyers did. I just see it. I don't feel that way. I wouldn't feel that way if my name was on the list. He's going to present his defense. He potentially may call these witnesses. There may be people who know them and may prejudice their ability to evaluate the case fairly. I see it that in a very criminal justice legal way, which I think is the right way to analyze it. You can give all kinds of motives to it. I don't know what those are.
it will be interesting. All right. Now, when we come back, we'll go from Albany to Washington. The race for House Speaker exposing a huge rift here in the Republican Party. It's gotten so bad, Chris Christie is comparing his own party to this.
You'll fight over him like beasts until you tear him apart. I will burn our house to the ground before I let that happen.
Tonight, we fight!
There's only one hell. The one we live in now.